Well, we have done the threefold human, the eagle, and now we're ready for our second animal of our human and animal block. And so I, excuse me, so I chose an animal that was very familiar to all of us. And so today we're going to be learning the story of the rabbit. And so a lot of our story today is just about Peter. I hope you guys don't mind. And we consider the rabbit to be a head animal because it is always very alert to its surroundings. So it's always using its senses to try to get more information about what's around it. Rabbits will often seem really nervous. They startle really easily, and they're always watching, and their ears are always turning for signs of danger. Their noses are constantly twitching as they smell the air. And even when they're sleeping, they can be up and awake and looking around if something startles them. I know that Peter has been asleep in his cage before, just completely zonked out, and I'll come along and I'll say his name or something and he jumps up on his feet, ready for whatever's coming at him. So they are always very alert, and their senses are alert, even when it seems that they're completely asleep. Now, rabbits also, this is another characteristic of head animals, they're also constantly chewing because they have those long front teeth. Those are called incisors, and we have them too, here and here. Those incisors on rabbits and rodents, though, are always growing. So they always have to eat kind of tough foods to try and wear those teeth down so they don't get to be too long. I'm gonna sneeze. Hold on. Allergies are terrible right now, aren't they? So that's why rabbits always need to be eating things like hay and grass and vegetables or leaves to try to keep their teeth at a manageable size for them. And often you'll see rabbits, they kind of like to chew on paper or cardboard sometimes, and that also helps their teeth. One time I let Peter out to roam around the classroom when everybody else had gone home, and I think I was working on a chalkboard drawing, and before I knew it, he had chewed the entire top rim off of a basket because they just love that feeling of chewing. So Peter, who is Isaac's rabbit, and he was our class rabbit for a while, he is a very special rabbit. So you might know we adopted him from the animal shelter late last summer. I think it was like the second week of school or something, we adopted Peter. Now he is an Angora rabbit with that long, long fur. And because of his breed, there weren't a whole lot of people who knew how to take care of him properly. So it took the shelter a long time to find him the right family. And they warned me when we adopted him that we had to make sure that his cage was always very secure, because apparently in his last home that he was at, and they brought him back to the shelter because they just couldn't take care of him properly, but at that home he had figured out how to get out of his cage, and they would find him over at the neighbor's house because he is such a smart rabbit. I guess they must have had a good garden or a really nice lush lawn over at the neighbor's house, and he just wanted to be over there. Now, he's never gotten out at our house, but one time somebody forgot to lock his cage after they fed him at night, and so he had gotten out because the door to his cage was wide open. But he didn't go far. He just went, the canoe is right next to his rabbit hutch at home, and so he just went under the canoe and he slept there that night and waited there the next day until we got home from school. And I don't think he wanted to go to the neighbor's house because our neighbors have a dog and she's noisy. I don't think he likes her very much, so he decided to stay close to home. So he obviously has really sharp senses. He can figure out how to get out of a cage. The cage at our house is pretty high off the ground, but he figured out how to safely do it. He's a very observant rabbit. And he also got out of his playpen in our garage one time, and he was just like hiding in the garage for a day. but he heard me when I came and I poured food into a bowl. He heard me and he came right out. So he has very sharp senses and he knows what's good for him. Well, I've had a lot of rabbits in my life. I used to raise Angora rabbits when I was your age, and I've never had one quite like Peter. He is different in many ways. He loves to be held and cuddled, as a lot of you found out when he was in our classroom. He will pick a person and he just loves to snuggle up on them. And I've had a lot of rabbits who liked to be held, but I think Peter takes the cake. I think he would just sit in somebody's arms all day long if you let him. He just loves that feeling of being held close. And one time, I might have told a few of you this story, but one time after school, I had him on the counter, under our windows, and I was watering plants or looking at a book or something, and Peter hopped over in front of me on the counter, and he stood up on his hind legs and he put his front paws on my shoulders, which I thought was so cute. And so I reached down and I petted him, and as soon as I reached down and my arm got low, he jumped up and jumped into my arms, just like a cat would. So sometimes I think that maybe he was raised around cats as he was growing up, because sometimes he just kind of behaves more like a cat than a rabbit. And in fact, we have Pickles, our cat, and our neighbors have two cats who like to come over and play with Pickles. And if Peter is out in his playpen in the yard, he can sense when those cats are getting close to him. For the most part, they get along really well, especially Pickles and Peter. They're kind of good buddies. But sometimes Pickles' predator instincts, they kind of get the better of him, and he'll kind of reach through, without claws, his claws are always in, he'll kind of reach through the bars of the playpen and he'll kind of start to bat at Pickles a little bit, or at Peter. But Peter, he can sense when that cat is starting to get into mischief, and he will hop around and face Pickles and just kind of stare at him, and Pickles will back off, because nobody wants to take on that big bunny when you're just a little cat. And I've kind of seen Pickles teaching the neighbor's kitten the same thing. I'll notice Teddy, the neighbor's cat, kind of creeping up on the playpen, and then Pickles will kind of look at him like, and then Peter will sense it and he'll hop around and he'll stare at the cat. So he does have very sharp senses, and he's a really smart rabbit. So another special thing about rabbits, they not only have their senses of smell and taste and hearing and sight, but they also are good like emotional sensors. And I don't know if you have noticed this about Peter, but just like most rabbits, he can really sense what the humans around him are feeling. So if we're calm and we're happy, he feels the same way. But if we're kind of nervous or scared or angry, he senses those emotions, and it makes him feel really tense too. So sometimes if I'm grooming Peter, I get a little nervous because I don't want to hurt him as I'm combing his fur, as I'm trying to trim out little mats. And he can tell when I start to get nervous, because then he gets really twitchy and it's hard to get him to sit still while I groom him. So then I kind of have to realize that it's how I'm feeling that's making him feel that way. So we usually just take a minute and we snuggle a little bit, and then we both feel better and I can carry on doing what I need to do. And that is the story not only of rabbits, but also of our friend Peter. And I hope you enjoyed learning more about them. And I hope you're excited, because you can guess what we're going to draw next. Everybody have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time.